Let's bring in Richard Walton. He is the former head of Counterterrorism Command at the London Metropolitan Police. Sir, thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it. Give us a sense of the question that I was asking Elizabeth Palmer, our correspondent there on the ground, the counterterrorism measures that are taken by the Metropolitan Police on an almost daily basis to keep the people and the citizens of London and the rest of the country safe, and what happens in the aftermath if this is proven to be a terrorist attack.
Well, obviously, this looks very much like a terrorist attack at this time. It's important to point out that most police officers in London are not armed, but those around fixed points, such as iconic sites such as the Palace of Westminster, Parliament, etc., are armed. And in this case, those armed officers have confronted an attacker. One police officer has been injured. We're not sure how badly at this stage. But then two other plainclothes police officers, it appears, have confronted the attacker just inside Parliament, the actual driveway that leads down to Parliament itself. And shots have been fired, and the attacker has been, again, we're not sure about the status of his injuries.
We know now that, at least we're getting a report that 12 people were injured by the vehicle. We heard earlier on Sky News that they heard from a doctor, and that's unconfirmed from the doctor, that some of these injuries are catastrophic. So moving forward, what's happening now in terms of this investigation? Will police be looking for surveillance video, photos? What happens next?
Well, the Counterterrorism Command, otherwise known as SO15, will lead this investigation. They're based at New Scotland Yard. They will undertake, obviously, a detailed forensic examination of the scene itself. That's the vehicle that was used on Westminster Bridge, and obviously the forensics that are in that vehicle. There'll be a detailed examination of CCTV across London to trace where that vehicle has come from. And obviously the main concern will be whether this is just one lone attacker, or whether it's actually he's one of several part of a cell. So at this stage it's too early to tell.
Richard, one of the things that, again, we're cautioning our viewers that although the Metropolitan Police has said that they are treating this incident for now as a terrorist incident, we have not heard that it definitively is a terrorist incident. But I want to ask you, one of the issues that has cropped up in continental Europe when it comes to terrorist attacks is the lack of sharing between entities, for example, in France, and entities in Belgium that are responsible for counterterrorism activity. Given that the UK obviously is an island and the counterterrorism forces that are there in place may have a different procedure for dealing with people that they are tracking or people that they have concerns about, give us a sense of how that works. In other words, are there people that the authorities are aware of? Are there people that that they may have been alerted from by other police forces on the continent? And what happens once they decide that this is something that needs to be activated in terms of going out and looking for them?
Well, cooperation between the police in London, particularly the counterterrorism police in London, and European counterparts is very, very strong. Both police-to-police cooperation and also police-to intelligence agencies is also very strong. One of the issues in the last few years has been the difficulty for agencies within countries to collaborate. But the United Kingdom, Great Britain, has got probably one of the best counterterrorism machines of anywhere in the world, if you like. The track record here is unrivaled. This is the first terrorist attack from an Islamic threat, assuming it is, and it is a big assumption at this stage, but assuming this is an Islamic inspired terrorist attack, then it's the first since the attack on Drummerley Rigby in 2013, and you have to go back to 2005 to get to the attack before that. So the track record of the UK is very, very strong. The relationships between British police and intelligence agencies and counterparts in Europe is very, very strong. You know, sadly, there have been a lot more attacks in France and Belgium and Germany in the last 3 years. This is the first attack in the UK of this kind since 2013, when drummer Lee Rigby was sadly killed on the streets of London.
I remember that incident very well. I covered it extensively. And that was the question that I was driving at, Richard, which is, so what you're essentially saying is that the coordination, for example, between British intelligence, let's say MI6, which carries out its activities abroad, and MI5, which is the equivalent for American audiences of our FBI, is coordinated. And then within MI5, you will also have coordination between the Metropolitan Police and other various police units within the United Kingdom and Great Britain.
Yes, I mean, Great Britain has led the way on collaboration between agencies to thwart this terrorist attack. And in fact, the model that's used in the UK is being copied and replicated around the world. And it is one where the police have a very, very close relationship with the intelligence agency MI5, a domestic agency, but also with the overseas intelligence agency MI6. And most people now see that relationship and the closeness of that relationship as a role model for how you should have a counterterrorism system that doesn't have silos, that doesn't have intelligence falling between the cracks of different agencies. I'm not sure it's the same in mainland Europe. There's an aspiration for it to be, but obviously the number of attacks that have taken place in France, Belgium and Germany over the last few years is very different to those that's the absence of attacks in the UK.
You know, you mentioned that we had to go back, quite a bit to identify a terrorist attack, at least by an Islamic extremist in London. But just last year, you had a different type of extremist, a right-wing extremist, who attacked a British MP. So I'm wondering, in terms of the concerns for the city, what are some of the things that law enforcement have been keeping an eye out on? You know, this is a time where we saw Brexit, we saw emotions running high over Brexit, and it's not just religious extremists now that may be a concern, but there are all kinds of concerns.
Well, I mean, there's been a threat from extreme right-wing groups for many, many years in Great Britain, as it has been, as there have been elsewhere. Most countries have got an extremist right-wing element to them, and obviously that is growing a little bit on mainland Europe at the moment. And there have been incidents in the past, and obviously you've made reference to the tragic terrorist incident in relation to an MP that was killed last year. The MP Joe Cox. I mean, but I think we need to put this in perspective. This is a very early time to make judgments about this attack. We know it's being treated as a terrorist incident. We don't know yet if it is indeed motivated by terrorist organisations. And if it is, it's the first attack since 2013. If it's motivated by Islamic terrorists, this is the first attack of this nature in 3 years.
Richard, and to that point, before I let you go, as I pointed out earlier, we are marking the one-year anniversary of the Brussels attack. In your estimation, in your experience, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, their affiliates, they tend to like anniversaries for making a point, for making a statement, do they not?
Well, opinions differ on that. I mean, obviously, ISIS will carry out an attack when they're able. They've had an aspiration to carry out an attack in the UK, in Great Britain, for a number of years now. If this is indeed inspired by ISIS, Islamic State, then it's the first successful attack by their measure in the United Kingdom since the problem arose in Syria and Iraq in 2011. Whereas there have been many attacks in France, Germany and Belgium and elsewhere, of course, including the US and Canada, Australia, etc. So this does look like an attack inspired by Islamic terrorists because of the modus operandi that's been used, the driving the vehicle into members of the public, causing serious injuries, and then obviously what looks like a stabbing of a police officer. That looks very, very similar to attacks we've seen elsewhere, including, of course, outside the Canadian Parliament a few years ago. So it does certainly look that way, but it's too early to make that conclusive judgment.
Richard Walton, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.